Cloud9, the reigning champs for Halo Infinite.
Who?
You know, Cloud9.
Who? But it's C9! The best team in the world.
We're the best team. We always knew we were.
The team that's been undefeated in every major Halo Infinite tournament thus far. They seem like the surefire team to take the championship again at the Kansas City Majors. That is, until Sentinels came along. Still, it was no surprise when the analysts had little to no hope that Sentinels will not be coming out on top.
Gotta go with Cloud9. How can you bet against them?
I'm gonna go for Cloud9 as well. I think it's inevitable.
You know, we haven't really been mentioning Sentinels. It's kind of, who's it gonna be? Optic, E United, maybe Sentinels.
But Sentinels proved everyone wrong that they can compete. And two, that stats aren't everything. It's doing the dirty work and securing the win. Just one of the things we're going to be covering later in the video. And that got me thinking, why can't I play as good as them? Maybe win an HCS of my own. So now I'm on a mission to take this and turn it into this.
Just pure dominance.
So of course I thought to myself, what is the best way to get as good as Sentinels? And of course, it's going straight to the source. So I decided to hit up each member on Twitter. Hey dude, what is the #1 tip you think I should learn? It's kind of wordy. How good meat? Yeah, that's pretty good. I got 0 responses. So now it's time for plan B. We're going to be breaking down Sentinels versus Cloud9 in the grand finals, understanding how this seemingly top 6 team turned it around on Championship Sunday will help you become a better Halo Infinite player.
Welcome to Halo Infinite Tips and Tricks, hosted by Assassin RFP.
Alright, so let's get into this first game, which is Slayer. So the first big tip is going to come from Frosty. As you can see, he's pushing at a subway, and anytime he aims, he's looking at where the enemy might potentially pop out. And he's not looking at angles that are covered by his teammates. He's also looking at the pings of his allies, where he hears gunshots. And as you can see, he pre-aims B window because he knows that people are potentially going to be there. So he's ready to shoot when that happens. And here's a more obvious example of that same thing. He knows there's enemies across, so he's just holding angles and making sure the enemies don't pass him. So tip #1 is to pre-aim where enemies might come and know where they're going to come from because of what's happening on the map. And pro tip #2 is going to be coming from your boy Royal 2. That wasn't on purpose, it just kind of worked out that way. And as you're going to be able to see here in this gameplay, he also is pre-aiming as well. But one thing that he does and that I really want to emphasize here is the way he's positioning his body around the map. Anytime he's pushing an angle, he's always sure that he could quickly peek into cover as needed. He knows that there might be an enemy at top C, so he doesn't push out recklessly. And here when he slides out, he doesn't slide completely out of cover. He slides right where this wall ends to make sure that he's able to go left if an enemy decides to push him. Since he didn't see an enemy right away, he decides to go a little bit farther, but he's always keeping in mind where that next piece of cover is. So when he does start getting shot and he's too far out to the right to actually get covered on the left, he goes to the closest piece of cover, which is the right. Even when he does try to push ahead, he jumps towards cover again. And here, quick peeking, gets close to the wall and strafes out. And the reason he's so close to the wall is because it takes a lot less movement in order to go out of the wall and come back in. And as you can see, he doesn't peek the first time to challenge. It's just to gather information. So tip #2, make sure you know where cover is and always work with it. Pro tip #3, we're back with Frost. First off, before I even play the video, look at his health bar. It's at 0, but he's letting it charge behind cover before he moves out. And again, just pre-aiming everywhere, expecting enemies to come, never being surprised. And what I do like here is that although he doesn't win the engagement completely, you know, he throws nades, kind of knows the timing, so he keeps enemies back. He knows he's not going to get rushed from there. And instead of hyper focusing on that enemy, is ready for the next enemy, always pre-aiming again where enemies are going to be at. So he causes the most trouble. And although he did end up getting taken out there, he was actually already running to the next piece of cover. Pro tip #3 is to anticipate where enemies are coming from based on your spawns. Frosty knows he has 2 allies spawning on the left, so where does that leave the enemies to spawn? On the right. And that is why Frosty decides to take cover in the middle, exposing himself to the left, but he knows his allies are there, and he's waiting for enemies to pass by, having the patience. And because he knows enemies are going to come from the right or potentially the back where you see them popping out now, he was already ready to throw a grenade. It wasn't like a reaction, it was already part of his moveset. He knew that if somebody was going to rush down there, a grenade was going to be first, he hits it, and that was going to lead to a kill. Now, instead of just staying in the middle knowing that he could be taken out because he was a little exposed there, he decides to try to flank the enemy. And although he misses that beatdown, he does not miss this shot. And if you guys didn't see, it's because he actually jumped onto this little box on the right and then jumped from the box to an even higher point than normal people would be in this position, meaning the muscle memory of the enemy player isn't really trained to shoot that high in this little location. And that's what got Frosty the win. And for pro tip number 4, we're back with Frosty. And what I really wanted to focus on here is that he sees enemies, multiple enemies throughout this clip, but he doesn't hyper focus on any. He doesn't know if there's an enemy top subway, but he throws a grenade because he knows if his enemy's running into subway, he's calling out that Frosty's coming through the streets. So he threw a nade, that way if anyone did try to rush, they would get hit by the grenade, or this would keep him back enough so Frosty could actually push in. Again, Frosty throws another nade without actually knowing if people are there, but if the initial guy that he was fighting is hiding around the corner, this would damage him, allowing him to push. But as you see, another person from top subway comes in and fights him, but since he did throw that grenade at the bottom, he's not allowing himself to get double teamed, at least not right away. And he ends up strong sighting, putting your head down and running away here. It's really just about not hyper focusing and anticipating where enemies are going to be at, whether you know they're there or not. Alright, now we're moving on to the second match, which is Capture the Flag on Aquarius. And here we're going to be highlighting Snakebite, who spawns top, drops, grabs the thrusters, and now is looking to see if any enemies are going to push through the bottom. He does spot an enemy going left, so instead of chasing from the back, he knows the route, he's going to cut him off. And the real play that I wanted to highlight here is that he used the thrusters to gain an advantage on the enemy. Obviously, you could two-shot and then melee, but when an enemy thinks you're out of range and you use the thrusters to close a distance, they're not going to be able to react fast enough for the trade. So make sure you use the thrusters offensively when you can. Next, we're back with Snakebite again, and this is a very short clip, but I want you to see what he does with the heat wave. As you can tell in the beginning, he has the heat wave set to vertical, but when he takes the second shot, he switches to horizontal. That way, when he confirms that he got all the pellets with the vertical and he needs to confirm the kill, he switches to horizontal because you don't need to hit all your pellets to get the kill. So just take advantage of a different gun's modes, and that's going to secure the kill more often than not. This next tip comes from Frosty. As you can see, he has the camouflage. The enemies do eagle eye him, shoot him, makes him think that he's running to closet, but then he comes back out. And he's just keeping top control. And as you can see here, he's staying behind this doorway, allowing him to be safe from being shot from enemies at the base, while still applying pressure everywhere. Then he throws grenades to keep the enemy back from being able to challenge him again. And still with the camo, instead of doing the conventional thing here and kind of keeping top control, he knows the enemies are still locked in over there, callouts because his teammates are also fighting there, and he just keeps on putting a lot of pressure. This just keeps the smart enemy who has patience and is letting their shields recharge, which everyone should do, because if you don't do that, then you're gonna die. But it keeps them locked down and keeps them from chasing the flag. And he continues being a nuisance in their base by taking top control, again running away strong sighting, putting his head down while sprinting so his head's a smaller target, and ends up getting taken down. But all the pressure he put on allowed Sentinels to take the flag all the way back to their base. And as you can see here, Snakebite is scoring. Now we're going to take a look at the way he juggled the flag. Obviously, juggling the flag, it's picking it up, dropping it off. A lot of people like to jump and drop it off at the peak of their jump. But as you can see with Snakebite, he doesn't always do that. When he's climbing up this ramp, instead of continuing to do that, he decides to strong sight again, put his head down so he doesn't get shot from the back and dies. And that keeps him alive. And when he's on the ramp, he doesn't really like to jump and throw the flag because that could actually get it stuck on the ramp right in front of you. So he simply does it while he's moving. But what's special that he does here, and is a tip that all of you should apply to your game, is that with his forward momentum, he lets the flag go, which keeps the flag going forward. He gets back, and that allows him to sprint and slide into the flag capture. Instead of having to walk that whole way or sprint the whole time, it allows you to go faster, safer, and throws the enemy's aim off, allowing the flag to be more consistently captured in those intense moments. And a few seconds later, Lethal does the exact same thing by picking up the flag and throwing it without jumping and being able to sprint and slide into the capture. And as you can see, Snakebite again is just doing the same, juggling the flag. When he's on a flat surface, he does jump with it. Otherwise, he doesn't. He just drops it onto the ground right in front of him. And that's especially important when you're approaching a doorway, like he does in this little situation, because you don't want the flag to hit the top and then it's kind of behind you, right? Those are the kind of things that mess up juggling the flag. So, they know not to do that, and now you know not to do that either. And not too much longer, they had the flag at their base once again, and here the tip is yes, to play for the win. Lethal could have probably captured this, but he was one shot, so instead he gave Frosty the flag to capture it. There was no need for Lethal to risk himself dying in case the enemy did push, in case they did kill Frosty. He's let his shields recharge, just in case Frosty did die, and then he would be able to catch her. Very easy. Always play for the win. Don't play for your own stats. And here what I wanted to highlight is how Snakebite tries to capture this objective, specifically where he positions his body. As you can see, he's kind of staying towards the back of C. Why? Because there's planters to his left and to his right, which he could use as cover as he starts getting shot. And he could easily run away to the left if he needs to. Where when he got challenged here, as you can see, he did shoot his thrusters to get behind cover. And even though he killed somebody there, if somebody else was shooting him from the middle, he would have been already back in cover. And again, when he's capturing, he just decided to stay back. So position your body where there's always cover, just like he's been doing in the first game. As you can tell, this is a habit everyone needs to employ. Every single player on a pro team is doing this, knowing where cover is, making sure you're there. And in this next clip, we're going to be taking a look at Lethal, taking advantage of top control. Over here, he is able to shoot anybody running towards Subway. But most importantly, I wanted to highlight the quick peeking nature here. Because he's behind cover, he's able to strafe left and right, and also pre-fires over the planters in case an enemy decided to push, slides out of cover to throw off an enemy's aim, and he's always aiming, knowing where the enemy's head would be when he turns around the corner. And since there's a lot of enemies pushing here, I want to highlight this clip especially. Look at him strafe behind cover, quick peeking. This is something that kept him alive a lot longer than he should have, which allowed his team to finally come in, support him, and take over this territory. It's not always about you getting the kill. You just simply putting damage on everybody, being a pest, keeping everyone distracted for as long as possible is sometimes the goal. And you could only do that by staying alive, not by being cocky, but by taking cover. It's royal to putting it all together, always staying behind cover, quick peeking, knowing where enemies are gonna spawn, checking those routes, putting your aim where the head's gonna be if they turn around the corner, and just staying alive and being a nuisance to his team. Although an enemy didn't push up those stairs, Frosty is ready for a fight when it does come. It doesn't come there. He's looking at Subway to make sure no one's pushing there, not overextending, moving cover to cover over here, putting shots, not being over cocky and challenging, just putting in enough damage, checking his flanks, checking all the routes, putting his reticle where the enemy's head would be, and again, sticking behind cover, being a nuisance, not getting over focused, and putting in a lot of shots, anticipating where enemies might come out of, throwing grenades there to make sure that they can't move, getting a stick. And honestly, the entire Sentinels roster was doing this whole thing, and quick peeking here, and the entire Sentinels roster was doing this throughout the entirety of Sunday, taking out team after team. But the tips don't stop there. I made a jam-packed video breaking down the first match of Cloud9 versus Sentinels, which is oddball on recharge, and went a lot more in depth in that video.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.